Pensado's Place is brought to you by
Our guest is a producer with many hats and hits. We got a brand new ITL. You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Pensado's Place. Glad to have you. It's going to be a great day. I got a feeling we're going to learn more today about some unique ways to approach music life and mixing than we've had in the past. Well, a lot to cover. I'm just going to punt to you, my friend.
Well, great. Let's get to it. Of course, we're coming to you from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. We're in our brand new, beautiful HD studio, which of course stands for
Herb and Dave. Man, I was going to think of something funny. I couldn't do it.
Herb and Dave is just fine.
I'll keep the Dave. Guys, send me some recommendations for the H for Herb and Dave. I'll take your ideas.
And actually,
and then once you do, he'll drop that little bit.
Precisely. So far
and not
away.
a minute too soon, I might add.
We're off to a rousing start.
Talk about me.
That was a good one. So send them to our social media stuff, which of course is Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel. We'll look for those comments there. That will always be good.
Or our website, 1555botme.com.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Hello to our Vintage King family. Hey, Vintage King, get to their website, vintageking.com, for all kinds of good stuff. They have been wonderful partners to us.
Yeah.
We love our avid friends as well. Good things going along with that stuff. Lots of stuff that we're going to be talking about and have been talking about, and more to come.
I don't want to throw the vibe of the show off, but Vintage King and Avid, we've said this numerous times. I couldn't earn a living without both those guys, and they provide me with great tools. And it's just wonderful to have people that understand the show, understand what we're trying to do, and in every way help us try and bring to the audience those things that fulfill your vision for what the show should be and our audience's wishes for what it could be. And got a lot of little things in store for you that they're going to be a part of to help enhance this thing we call, audio engineering.
They are outstanding partners, both as people, as brands, and they bring this to you in a really wonderful way.
We couldn't do this without them.
No question. Last thing that has been helpful for us is...
I got serious for a minute.
You did. It was good to see you that way. It was almost emotional.
True.
Very good for you.
I was emotional.
Our call to action on the education front, thank you for that stuff. Fill in some of those blanks, pensadosplace.tv/education. You can go to our website, fill in a little bit of information. We're compiling that. That's been very helpful. All good stuff. We have such a good...
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
If you had to describe our show to someone with a gun to your head using only one word, what word would you use to describe our show?
I'd have to use a couple, which would be, don't shoot me.
I would say educational.
Okay. And then
that's what made me think of that sentence. I mean, if one word to describe this show, because we ain't funny, Lord knows that, and all our guests share so openly, and that's education. It seems like if I had to say one word, we're an educational show with a little stupidity thrown in.
I think you're absolutely correct, and certainly that's the reception. You know, the people that come up to us, the people that we see on social media, the learning component has been most gratifying for us, and one of the reasons that we're going to take the show to other places to keep that learning and spreading it out. So why don't we get to a learning section and tee up the ITL.
Okay, guys, in the grand tradition of all ITLs, here's another great one. Okay, now we're going to do high frequencies today, and what's the difference between high and low? Well, one's high, one's low. Not really. People have a tendency when they're working in the low frequencies to think that the frequency they are hearing that they need more of is actually lower than it really is. But an odd thing happens. It's the opposite for high frequencies. Like I see people grab 15K for a vocal when really they need to be grabbing 6K. And we're going to go over that right now. I want you to focus on high frequency information. I want you to focus on the pristineness of the vocal. I want you to focus on cymbals and the frequencies that add excitement to the snare. Okay, now we're gonna start full bandwidth, and we're gonna back off some of the high frequencies. Now, if you haven't watched the episode on low frequencies first, you don't have to, but I think you can get more out of this episode if you go back and watch the entire ITL on low frequencies first, because I'm going to move a little fast because we've already learned a little bit, and I don't want to bore you guys. Not a lot happened from 20K to 10K. Those of us that have super hearing, we hear all the different harmonics, we hear all that stuff. But in reality, you could sell this song with a top end of 10K. Let me do that again. I'm gonna tell you when I get to 20K. Full bandwidth. Go down. Now, we lost more going from 10K to 7K than we did from 20K to 10K. Duh, Dave. You know, I know. But a lot happened in those 3,000 cycles. So we hadn't even gone half an octave yet. Half an octave is when we get down to 5K from 10K. So let's start at 10K and let's cruise down to 5. Remember, we're listening to the hi-hat, top of the snare. I don't have any vocals in this song, but when we do the Andy Wallace song, we'll get that. Okay, up to about 5K now. Now, watch what happens to the mid-range when I head on down to the low frequencies. My snare becomes a whole different instrument. So when you want to hear that snap on the snare, you're going to reach for the 10K, or you're going to reach for the 3, 4, 5K. You might want to reach for the 3, 4, 5K first, and then add a little bit of 10K as needed. If you add the 10K, you're not going to get that high frequency snap that we associate with a snare drum. Train your ear to think that way when you're doing these tests. Now let's run the low frequencies. Let's focus on what's left. Don't focus on the low end that's gone. Focus with the frequencies that are left, and let's see what the snare is going to sound like with just high end left, and that'll tell us what we need to do on the high end. We're not worried about low end. We're worried about what's missing, about what's there. Like we got to around 200 and things started getting a little drastic. Last week we talked about how dramatic 200 is in snare sounds and stuff. Let's keep moving on up. Let's do the hi-hat and the top end of the snare. Okay, what struck me is the snare doesn't sound as bright, but we're only at like 1.3K, but the hi-hat still sounds like a hi-hat. So that tells us that there's not as much high frequency information above 5K needed for a snare sound. Let's move on up to 5K and see what happens to our snare sound. Okay. The thing that strikes me is the top end that's left of the snare sounds almost like the hi-hat. Ain't saying, maybe we might want to tweak those a little, get them out of the way of each other. So we might put a peak at a different spot on the hi-hat than we would on the high end of the snare. But I'm just teasing. Bob's my hero, and I've probably stolen more stuff from Bob Power than anybody. And the mix is perfect, by the way. I'm just trying to explain some things to you. Now, to me, it's frightening how little information is necessary to convey that snare sound. Let's focus on the hi-hat, and then we're done with this one. Okay, we're at 10K. Now the little triangle sound has so much more high end in it than the hi-hat. So the hi-hat got left behind, and now we're seeing that where he set the high end of the triangle and where he set the high end of the hi-hat make them work beautifully together. Check, just focus on the hi-hat and triangle. Watch this. See how beautifully they coexist? Very cool, man. Bob's a beast. Now, on the low end stuff, we swept an equalizer. I want you to do this one on your own, guys. That's 1K. Interesting, huh? Let's move it on up. Let's stop ourselves when we think we're really hearing high end. Okay, right around 4K, there seems to be, from the 2K to the 4K range, we're not feeling mid-range, we're starting to feel a little more high-end. Now this is where it gets instructive. Watch this. Okay, that's some serious top end. Now watch what happens when I go past 10K. When I hit 15K, there's not much there. When you grab for the 15K knob to make your hi-hat brighter, you're not really making the hi-hat brighter. What you're doing is you're simultaneously pulling up some 10K because of the bandwidth. So don't screw with 15K, it's useless. Screw with the frequency you want. Train your ear to hear the frequency you want. The low end always sounds higher than you think it is, the frequency you need. And the opposite is true on the high end. You always think it's higher than the frequency you need. As promised, my friend Anthony Kilhoffer is here with us today. And let's just jump right in. We've got a guest that's so versatile and so good in so many areas, I don't want to waste any time. Anthony, thanks for coming by, my friend.
Welcome, man.
Thanks for the
I
invite.
don't know if I can reach you.
Greatly appreciate it.
Very good. Cool.
But I know you're busy. I couldn't wait to talk with you. In fact, we talked a little bit last night because I just couldn't wait to ask you a couple of questions. So let's just jump right in.
Let's go.
For those of you that aren't familiar with everything Anthony's done, let's start with all the best Kanye records. He produced, played, mixed, engineered, you name it. The man has done it with Kanye, him and our old buddy Mike Dean, and then John Legend, Kid Cudi, T.I., 2 Chainz. Who am I forgetting? I was going to try and do this without looking. Did I say John Legend? Rihanna. And then I stopped mentioning Michael Jackson. Everybody we've ever had on the show works on Michael Jackson.
Like Madonna.
The reason that LA is having economic times is the poor man isn't making records anymore that he gets money for. I mean, he supported the entire audio economy. You know?
All the rental companies, for sure, at least.
For sure.
I'm not being funny, and I mean no disrespect because I love Michael, but I actually knew the man, but gee whiz, everybody's worked with Michael, and I thought I was special. And not only that, but Anthony has like taken over Europe recently. Sway, Skepta, and a French group, 3 letters, PZK.
PZK.
Yeah.
PZK.
So,
And Debanch. That's my Nigerian connection.
really?
I just had to say Debanch.
What does that mean?
He's an artist. He's on good music.
The man is fluent in multi-language.
Nigerian.
My God, what does he not do? So let's jump right in. One of the things that I've always wanted to ask you about is the records that you mix and work on and play on could almost be described as full. They're not 80s hip hop records that just have an 808, a kick, a snare, and some rap. You pack a lot of stuff in, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself every time I hear your records, how did he do that? Because I wouldn't know where to start. Like, I'd start by muting half the stuff, but you're getting it to work. Is it because you created a lot of those sounds?
I mean, a little bit, but also then, thinking, I try to think of the speakers not just being like 2 speakers, like think in a sphere, right? I do a lot with imaging, and not just widening images, but like perhaps, that way, and this,
Depth.
depth, not just everything wide, not just panning one thing left, one thing right, and also like dramatically EQing things that are not, the frequencies are not used in those sounds.
Give me an example of what you would call dramatic. More than 6 dB?
Yeah, I'm all about excess. Like, to me, like when
That's
making
the quote of the day.
well, in music, that is. But I'm saying, like, my favorite record, one of my favorite records of all time is Trent Reznor's Downward Spiral. And like, when you hear that, it's like a masterpiece. Every little piece, utensil is executed so well in the composition of the record. And I also like look at it like as an art piece, right? How do you fit all these things in? It's just not like, 808, snare, vocals, music stuck in the back. Just instead of having the synth that comes out of the synthesizer, it's already made its stereo image, right? Maybe it shouldn't be that stereo because it's gonna hog up too much space in your mix. Maybe it should be more mono. Maybe it shouldn't be 100% mono. Maybe it should be a little bit more mono and lean to the left a little bit, and the other synth that is playing kind of the same melody is a little bit, or twice as wide and lean to the right. So, it's just giving your listener a perception kind of how things are coming out of the speakers, not just everything at 100% stereo, everything at 100% mono.
In thinking that way and working that way, I would imagine it gives you control over the colors. That you can almost paint that palette. Is that what happens as you?
I mean, you try to as much as possible.
Sure.
Sure. But it's just like giving things places to live, nicely with each other.
A lot of my favorite engineers that come on the show, all the engineers on the show are my favorite, and I'm noticing a trend that mono is not a bad word anymore.
Not at all.
And would you categorize our current use of mono as a method of making things sound a little newer, a little more 2015? It seems like as engineers we went through a phase where everything had to be outside the speaker plane, which you still utilize the foot either way of the speakers. But it seems like yourself, Justin Niebank, Tom Elmhurst, Andrew Shipp, a lot of the guys are really, really, really focusing on new uses for mono. Is that an accurate statement?
I mean, in my work,
audio question.
not really in my work. I just use mono in drums and vocals, like kick, snare, vocals. That's the only real use in bass, 808 sub bass, not even bass guitar. I mean, just in what I do in my world, that's like my only utilization of mono, really.
Okay, on Kid Cudi, Maniac. When I hear that song, the kick drum sounds like it just sounds like a post-apocalyptic soundtrack for an end-of-the-world movie. God, what a great sentence that was. You know what I'm talking about? It's got that big reverb on it. Yeah. And the reverb on the kick is in mono. Is it on the sample or did you add it to the sample?
No, I added it to the sample.
What was that?
Man, I use D-verb. I don't get it all super fancy. You know, I'd use D-verb and R-verb, but yeah, D-verb.
And on that same song, what's kind of cool is you implant that kick drum in my head, and this is in the intro, which a lot of guys that don't do this for a living don't understand. If you can get someone liking the intro, you're halfway home to get them to like the chorus. And the chorus is where the money lives, but the intro is what keeps them going until they get to the chorus. The intro is like the silverware at a restaurant. If the silverware is dirty, you're not going to eat the meal. And the meal is the chorus. And so you set me up with that incredible kick drum, and then you got the most coolest panning keyboard part that's just whipping around. Was that a conscious effort to give the earbud guys something to have fun with?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was like, you know, Cudi was just, you know, he was like, man, just make it crazy, blow people's minds. You know, and so I just like hooked up a couple of different effects in Ableton, you know, a delay, some filtered chain, you know, a filtered chain to a delay, and then just, you know, was actually, you know, hitting the pad and sweeping.
How are you running Ableton within your mix? Are you rewiring it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like do it like, you know, what I'll do is I'll take when I decide it's Ableton time, because, you know, each song probably goes through 3, you know, it's got to go into Logic, it's got to go into Ableton, it's got to go into Pro Tools. Maybe
Really?
Yeah.
Is this just you, or is this
Well,
a
that's
function
just
of the
me.
camps you work with?
That's just me, or well, yeah, that's just me, because I like, you know, there's certain aspects in Ableton, like I said, the effects. You can't duplicate that in Pro Tools, you can't duplicate that in Logic, Fruity Loops. There's not, because you can map and do these crazy integral, you know, multiple effects and then tie together the, you know, parameters onto one knob, and then when you sweep the knob, you're actually affecting 3 parameters instead of just like turning up the delay feedback, you know.
And that's all automatable too.
Yeah, so, you know, what I do then is I just take, you know, the song, whether it's in Pro Tools or Logic, because the warping function gets a little complicated in Ableton, right? So I don't warp, I mean, I turn the warp on, but if you know, for instance, that it's, you know, the song, I'll probably used to do 1 verse, 1 chorus, 32 bars, 48 bars. I know the tempo, just drop that into Ableton, you know, do stems, then I can affect what I want to affect, you know, and then bam, put that in. Then I know the tempo already, I know the number of bars, I don't have to do any warping on the vocals, I don't have to time stretch anything, I just type it in, go.
And when you transfer it back into Pro Tools, are you transferring one wave file with the effects already on that, or you're not doing it? So you're committing. You're saying this way it's going to be.
When I started, I worked with Ministry. I don't know if anyone, the metal, or not metal, what did they call that back?
Yeah, but it was hot.
Kind of metal,
Yeah,
industrial.
Yeah,
I came from Chicago in the 90s, right? And how they made these crazy songs before Pro Tools. They would mix the verse for one day, right? And then they would mix the pre-chorus for another day. And they would have all these dramatic different sections of their songs, and they did this by, at the time, I think it was called sound engineering, or the first ever stereo Pro Tools thing, right? So they would mix the verse for a day.
It was still sound designer then.
Yeah, sound designer. So they mix the verse for a day, and then they mix the pre-chorus and the hook for a day, and then they chop the 2 tracks together. And so it would give them, there's no way on an SSL you could automate the total, like, filtered drums for the pre-chorus, and then the massive hook with the, you know. So that's how I try to do it. Like in the intro, where I would put that in Ableton, just made it all Ableton-y, exported it all back to Pro Tools, just had the one intro that was maybe 16 tracks or 8 tracks different than the verse 16 tracks, which was different than from the hook 8 bars, you know.
Wow.
So it's like each little part of the song is almost a whole different thought process.
If you say no, I'm not going to edit this out. When you get a moment, is there any way you could like spend 5 minutes and just do an ITL for me on how to integrate Ableton into Pro Tools? I'm struggling with that. I'm not. I see that as something very necessary, and you just confirmed that suspicion. And I've just been too lazy to break down and learn it. But I'll learn it before I come, and I won't interfere. Yeah. I'll just sit like a fly on the wall and let Will, our producer. Would you do that for us?
Absolutely.
Oh, great.
I'm more than happy
Don't have to edit that out. Did you use that process on Maniac on the chick's vocals? Those delays on the chick vocal?
Yeah. That's St. Vincent, by the way.
Who?
Her name is St. Vincent, Annie Clark.
I love what you did on that because there again,
Her name's not Chick.
Well, yeah.
It's an endearing hippie term.
Precisely. The hippies went out about 30 years ago. Anyways, continue.
Hippies, we're good, we're loving, kind flower children. So, I completely forgot my train of thought. We're talking about the background.
Vocals on the Maniac number.
When I'm, like I said, here again, I'm sitting there thinking, golly, there's so much going on, and that vocal, you didn't radio it, you didn't lo-fi it, but it just sits in this spot that's spectacular as a mixer. Many props, and you did that on No Mercy. There's a couple of things where a mere mortal would have either had to put it louder or you wouldn't have heard it. But you find this way to put those little, what is the word, ancillary, Herb, the little secondary vocal parts. They become little tiny hooks that like the layers of an onion. You don't discover it first. You peel the first layer off. Like some of that I missed on the first listen, but the third, fourth, fifth listen, those. Can you take me through the process of how you create those? You did it on those. You do it on several of your songs.
Well, I think like we're talking about too. I think when you go into Ableton, there's different ways. You can either warp it with beats or complex. I think every system has its own sound, right? So if I put it in beats, because that's a sample. That's not a vocal. That's a sample. So I used beats, and it went in and out of. It came off a CD. It went into Ableton, came out of Ableton, back into Logic. So every little bounce, I think, adds a little grittiness to it. I also like, and other things like you mentioned, I use like bit crushing. I'm a big fan of the bit crushing. And a little self-harmonic distortion, which just crunches it up a little bit, and that's what...
You give me more and more batter's box questions here. Distortion.
But no, yeah, because not full on. What I never use is the SansAmp, because I think it's a little too much. It's too aggressive. But that's what I'm saying, like bit crushing a little bit more than just turning up the gain 100% or even 25, because I think you lose then the texture of the actual sound if it's an amp farm or 11 or, that's why the bit crushing.
You always take the SansAmp and use it as a send, though.
I do. I mean, yeah, you're right. You can.
Several of the songs, the piano, your synth piano sounds have this attack that my ear never loses them in the mix. What are you doing to?
I think that's the same thing. It's just like, a little distortion, bit crushing. Make it, like you said, mono, like maybe not, I'm not going back to mono, but I'm going back to the AM, a little bit, like the AM radio frequency spectrum a bit more. Like, I don't know, that then lends, like I like to do that. Like I said, the Downward Spiral record was highly impactful in how I think about music. And it's the same way, It's like a friend of mine, when they first heard it, they were like, man, this sounds like it's coming through an AM radio and the world has just ended and this is being, piped to us. And, that's what I like to get, because everybody's, gonna hear the same chord piano on the radio, right? Or the Triton piano, or the Alicia Keys piano. So you just got to change just a hair, but you don't want to you don't want to overdo it. But it just adds some grit, because a lot of things are soft synths,
On T.I. No Mercy, do you remember the preset you used for that piano sound?
No, but it's probably just the Triton. That seems to be.
Okay. And then you were talking about mid-range. Your vocal sound sounds so modern. I don't hear a lot going on above 10K, maybe above 8K. And then I don't hear a lot going on the low side either. And then the way you're getting your high-end information in the 4 to 6K range, which is brilliant in today's world. But the thing that I love the most is the way you take the mid-range and just put it right there. It's never harsh. Are you compressing just the mid-range, like with a multi-band compressor?
Not at all.
Can you take me through your vocal? Because it's the same, not the same, but it's the same.
Yeah,
I get the same impression, and it just sounds so modern.
Yeah, it's like it's my consistency. It's like that's like my not necessarily trademark, but there's things you do, like you go to a mixer
Well, don't
because
give away any
they do
secrets, but just give us some philosophy.
But I mean, it's just like super high or DS harsh in the beginning, and then recreate it.
Beginning, I mean, you put the DSer first
The very
in the
first
chain.
one, yes. And then once you kind of get all that C800G garbage out of there, because I really don't like that microphone. To me, it already sounds too bright and like it's ready for mix. Ah! You know what I mean? It's like, man, they got over on that, man. You know, they sold a lot of people that, like, I think it sounds horrible. But anyways, you know, yeah, take that off. Or, you know, a lot of people, if they record with an inexpensive microphone that doesn't have like a body of an 87 or 67 or a Telefunken 251, right? So DS, and then SSL EQ, and 1176. You know, it's
The
not.
Waves version?
Yeah.
G or the original?
I think E, the one that goes this way, not the one with the compressor.
I think that's E too.
I'm a big E fan. I love the E desks. If I could
Did
ever-
you arrive at that the way you manipulate that intentionally, or did it evolve as a reaction to the way people listen to music nowadays?
I mean, 100% honesty, I was assisting Spike Stent,
Oh,
the infamous mixer, and I was just like, man, so that's what he's doing. It's like, so that's how Madonna's vocal sounds.
But to your credit, Spike keeps more high end than you do.
I know. Well, I've tried, you know, because I live in more of a hip hop world, and he lives in the pop world, so I've had to, you know, accommodate, because you can't be turning in hip hop records that sound like Spike, you know. But I mean, like he did, what did he do? He did the Frank Ocean recently, and I noticed, you know how to tailor what you think your audience is gonna allow and be happy with.
Yeah, Spike's one of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
You kind of briefly touched on how you can create sounds for specific genres of music by manipulating just the frequencies of above 6K on a vocal. I don't think the audience understands how important that is on every element in the song, not just the vocal. Does it come inherently from a lot of work and practice, or do you actually still think about that on every mix?
I think about it on every mix, because you kind of like have to know who your target audience is and like what their peers are sounding like, right? You know, like if it's a Christina Aguilera song, yeah, man, it's got to be bright, you know. But if it's like a Jay-Z song, like he doesn't want to hear that in his vocal, you know.
And on another one of my favorite mixes of yours, "Birthday" by 2 Chainz, his vocal, was it stacked, or did you do that electronically? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Does he tend to stack his vocals?
I wasn't there. I mean, I just mixed it, so. I can't remember. No, I don't think it was stacked.
Do you remember what effects you used on that? I love this. It wasn't like Alloy or Nectar or one of those ones.
No. I mean, I think they edited that previous to my mixing. Like they went in, like he has this engineer KY, and he's like, that's his thing. He does 2 Chainz vocal. You know what I mean? And it sounds great. And then all I got to do is a little compress, a little high, and fit it into the mix.
Before we were starting today, you and Herb were talking about, in today's climate, sometimes it's good to have a skill set that's a little wider than the traditional 80s and 90s skill set that audio engineers. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I think that's fascinating.
Think, you know, I mean, I've been in the business too. I've been in Los Angeles for 12 years, and then maybe I worked in Chicago 4 years prior to that. So it's been a long time. I've seen the decline of, when I moved to LA, there were, I couldn't even think, 50, 60 studios. Like you couldn't go down Magnolia and not.
I remember. I worked at
Every stoplight.
Every stoplight, there'd be DFX trucks driving around, and audio rents. It was just popping. And now it's like, I mean, man, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you could go to any of these, you know, studios today, and only half the rooms are booked. Absolutely. You know, and there's only maybe 4 left to where there used to be like 50 or 60. That's so, right. You know, just to try to, you know, stay alive in this market and to make a living and support my family, you know, you just have to like broaden your horizons. It's like when I came to LA, you'd go to a session, I'd assist, they would have an engineer and a producer and an assistant and maybe a Pro Tools guy. Yeah. Now you go to the session, you got one guy, he's doing it all. He's recording, he's making the beat, maybe he's writing the lyrics too. You know what I mean?
He'll be the runner, go get some meals, all that.
Whatever it takes. So, you know, just to evolve as a businessman, you know, I've just been trying to, you know, start like a production company, a little management thing at the same time, because I know how to make the product, and just to find young artists to then help me make more product and to be more involved in different parts of the marketplace.
Wow. Did it again. I'm using myself here. One of the things I've noticed about today's world is I'm actually I'm saddened that some of my colleagues are struggling, but at the same time, I'm happy that I get to use more of my skill set now. Before it was shut up and mix. Now it's they don't use the word production, but can you fix is the word I get a lot. Can you fix the piano part? Can you fix the drum part? Can you fix the whole damn song?
Yeah, exactly. For no publishing.
Yeah, and that's okay with me. I just enjoy. You know, we've done this for a while, and I just enjoy it. On the, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a couple of Kanye questions. You guys do a lot of the recording process for Kanye is not traditional. Let me just say that. It's not stop by a studio and record. I mean, you guys have to follow him or chase him around, don't you?
Yeah.
But that's a good thing because you catch him when he's always at his best.
Well, you know what it is I think, you know, we remove, like if you remove people from their normal day-to-days, right? Mm-hmm. Your friend isn't calling you up, inviting you to dinner. Yep. You can't step out and go to see your buddy's show. Your girlfriend might not be wanting to go to dinner. Mm-hmm. Right. So we go somewhere and we go to the studio. And we get up, you go to the studio, we go home and go to bed. We get up, we go to the studio, go home, go to bed. It's very like, I call it like building the Hoover Dam, right? You know what I mean? Like you just focus. You go somewhere, there's a task at hand. You know, every morning we discuss what's going on. Let's see, so where's this song, where's that song? What are we doing today? We reconvene later, you know. Okay, 7 o'clock. So what'd you do this afternoon? What are you doing tonight? Mike Dean, where's those guitar parts? No, and then it all just, instead of just being, you know, in one place, I think it's really good to have everyone removed.
I was blessed to work with Kanye. I think it was Keisha Cole's first album. I can't remember the song that he did for us, Should Have Cheated, or one of those songs. And I was impressed with him in terms of his mastering of new ways to do things. He embraces multiple methods of creativity, which I don't think a lot of people understand how really creative he is and how he's not really interested in doing what he did last year.
I mean, he's a very innovative individual.
Yeah, I don't think that shows a lot of time to the public.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you look at his music, it shows because it's never been the same. It's always, you know, cutting edge. It's always kind of not just what he's doing, but who he brings on board. Like, you know, What is a Dark Twisted Fantasy had Justin from Bon Iver, right? And at that time, you know, Justin was kind of it was just bubbling, right? That was pre his winning the Grammy for Best New Artist. You know, who else? You know, Rick Ross, Nicki Minaj. You know, it seems like you come out there, you know, Kid Cudi on the Jay-Z record.
Well, just the Odd Future people, like, they wouldn't exist without him tweeting about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of him, that synth sound on...
What song are you referring to today? It's something in Paris.
African Americans in Paris. The synth sound on that song, that had that attack that I like on it too.
All right, well, I'll just tell you the secret. You know the Dave. You know the secret. It's the SPL Transient Designer. I mean, that's the attack machine.
It doesn't sound that way when I do it. And there's only two damn knobs on it. Oh man, now you made me feel bad.
No, that's my thing.
I tried that damn thing on vocals the other day.
Oh, really?
And it was kind of cool. I had a little part, like that little background part we were discussing of yours, and it just kind of made my ear find it. You work with Travis, right? Is that your artist?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. Tell us about him.
Travis Scott, he's a young rapper from Houston, and he's doing an Al Farrow mixtape right now, which we hope to release before the first of the year. And he was on Cruel Summer, I'm sorry. He produced Sin City with Sahai the Prince, John Legend, Tiana Taylor.
Yes. And this is part of your evolution in the Anthony Kilhoffer evolution as producer, engineer,
take over the whole
world domination
business.
Something we believe in.
Yes, that's indeed.
We believe in that a lot around here. Let me ask you a question. You and Dave share something similarly, even though it's sort of backward compatible. Like Dave, up until last year, because of the show, never had a website. And so you either had to have his number or you kind of couldn't find him. And what I hear in terms of, A, the way you work, and B, what you're working on, focus is important. So the idea of having your time taken away with a lot of social media stuff. That's not where your focus is it?
No, see, I think like me and Dave came from like a place where like the studio was where people, like you got to the
That was
studio.
church, wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
church.
but no, that's where you made all your contacts down, you know, the coffee machine or, you know, whatever. So
100%.
that's
it was
where,
the town hall.
Yeah, it was the town hall. And I think that's with all these project studios, things are really getting lost in the, you know, it's really horrible because you're not being able to learn from other engineers, other producers. You're not meeting other artists. You're not meeting other A&R people. Everybody's in their own little place, you know, so there's no kind of community.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's a really like horrible side. So I mean, I understand the social media thing, but there's something about being face to face and being like, oh, come in my room, listen to my project. This is what we're doing over here.
Leave the door open when we had a good part so everybody'd hear it.
Yeah, exactly. Or close the door because you didn't want people to know what was going on.
A few of those moments.
Funny enough, to your point, that we hear that a lot about the show, that people get here and sort of talk and share and haven't seen each other.
Was it Jack or Tony that said our show is kind of the new kitchen in the studio?
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is kind of cool. You know what? How's your arm? Is it loose? It's time for batter's box.
I told you I've been working out.
Oh, cool.
I might take him today.
Tee it up, man.
You know what? I've never done this before, but as the interview was going on, I kept adding more and more categories to batters.
We've got the
box.
speed gun on your questions. So
Well, I got a feeling he's gonna be fast. I usually get 7 to 8, but
He's got good bat speed.
All right, let's go.
I'm going for like
Throw it.
41,
Throw it.
42.
No more sit-up.
All right.
Throw it.
88, 808.
Transient designer, full tech.
Reverb.
Inverse.
Ooh, vocals.
Bright.
Methane farts.
Flammable.
Virtual synth under $300.
Mini monster.
Mini Monster. This man is good, Herb, son of a bitch. Keyboards.
Moog Voyager.
Stereo bus.
Limit only.
Strings. This man's incredible with strings. Listen close.
10K.
Oh.
Ambience.
Add or subtract 10K.
Add.
Limiter.
Massey or out of the box. You know, the Massey.
2007.
2007, yeah.
Bass. Synth bass.
Bit Crush.
Good answer. Island gear. If you were stranded on an island.
Logic. Out of the box. Waves and some SPL transient designers.
And a few of my records for reference.
Yes.
Stereo image. Widening the image.
The S1, Waves. Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, distortion.
Oh, so many such little time.
Wow, I had the calendar wrong. I didn't
Okay,
realize.
let's do it backwards. I'm gonna name some distortion boxes.
Okay.
Rate them A to D,
Okay.
A to F. Decapitator.
F.
Oh God, no, that's an A.
Ask Mike Dean how much I hate the decapitator.
Sanzant.
7.5.
THC Massey.
6.5.
Trash Isotope.
Never used it.
Oh, it's good.
I'll
Should
check it
love
out. Absolutely.
Well, how'd he do, Herb?
Well,
You ain't got to say it. He cleaned my clock.
well, it was like the All-Star game.
I
Like
think
we're
that
just.
was I think that was top 5.
It was like the home run derby. He just hits a pow, pow, pow.
was a top 5
His bat
performance.
speed is very high. It comes around fast.
A hint to future guests, this man watched every show at least 20 times, and that's what happens when you watch our show.
When you're prepared, it's his focus. That's why he is who he is. Let's say hello to G.I. Griffin over in the corner office. G.I., how are you?
Warm.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. You
I'm
look
liking
warm.
this. Yeah, you know, doing the whole marshmallow thing. It's a little on the dark side, but
All right.
it's getting
All
there.
right.
What you asked for? I asked for a little air.
Tee up a few questions.
All right, this first one is for Anthony from North P Music. He wants to know what vocal chain, mic pre EQ compressor, was used on the game Doctor's Advocate.
I mean, I think on that one, that was just like an SSL and a LA2A. Standard studio business. That was not fancy.
All right.
Plug in or outboard?
No, real deal.
Real deals?
For the, yeah.
The next one is from Regu. Anthony, please describe how you made the transition from recording to mixing, and were your early mix mistakes, and what were your early mix mistakes, and how you overcame them.
I love his spaghetti
Man,
sauce.
that took so long to make it over the you know, from engineering to mixing. Just first big mistakes was compression. The SSL compressor on the stereo bus was my first big mistake. How I did it, just work really hard, reference a lot of good songs, and be working with people that really make you work hard, and you know.
Can I toss something in? Not just in mixing, but in life, the guys that are successful don't look at mistakes as any different than successes. They're just part of the same learning process, and they don't really make a distinction. Herb's a big fanatic basketball fan, and Pau Gasol took a three-pointer last night and missed it like crazy. And afterwards, he said, "Well, I was just a little too far out. I'll make it next time." Mistakes to. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just going to chime in with you. Mistakes are opportunities, and it tells you what not to do next time. Absolutely. So you have to embrace mistakes as part of your journey toward getting better.
I don't necessarily recommend this, but I made all my mistakes in Atlanta, and at that time, nobody cared about me anyway, so it didn't matter. And by the time I got to LA, I was fairly good, and I'd passed that part. I can't imagine having a mistake in LA. It's such a small community, everybody would know it, but to each their own.
Go ahead, G.I., tee up another one.
Next one is from Pay-Per-View Studios. Question for AK. Different compressors have different knee characters. Some even have controls to adjust this parameter. Do you find that hard knees lean themselves towards certain types of instruments or sounds and soft knees to others?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on like what the sound is, of course. You know what I mean? This seems a little weird. I don't really fully understand. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a knee is. I'm being honest.
Tee up another one, G.I.
This is from Anthony Villa. Anthony, what steps did it take to get from ground zero to where you are now? Was it mostly music or also other business ventures that are relevant to your success?
I think it's all about the music, and it's all about personality too. Like, because you know, you are working with other people. It's a service industry. It's no different than being a waiter. You're just serving them music at the end of the day, and not pasta or fish tacos or whatever it is. So you got to work nicely with other kids, is what Roseman used to say at the record plant. You know, if you can't, you know. And,
Did you start
yeah,
there?
that's where I started. You know, and you got to take your lumps, man, because sometimes it's rough out there.
Didn't we meet a few times at Enterprise?
I think I came over there. I worked with Ron Fair a lot, and you'd come by.
Yeah,
over there.
yeah. That was at Record Plant, though. Yeah.
All right. Last one from Mike Pear. Out of managing, producing, and engineering, these days, which do you find demands the majority of your time, and which do you like doing the most?
Unfortunately, I think the management takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So much time I did not even know.
Yeah.
And the thing I like to do most is just write songs, produce songs, play the Moog. That's the best. Playing the Moog is the best in my opinion.
I've noticed that cats like you don't really distinguish different parts of the process. Cats like you tend to look at it as one process that continues from start to finish. Whereas I kind of slide in near the end. You just enjoy the entire process. It's not, you don't break it up.
Are there things that inspire you that are not musical that help?
Yeah,
with
like
your music?
Stanley Kubrick.
Gotcha.
You know, like just great art. You know, like I said earlier, like how it, you know, composition of a Stanley Kubrick movie is genius. You know, and so
Clockwork Orange screwed me up for years.
yeah, exactly. You know, so that if you can relay fine art to fine music, which it's hard to do these days because it's all just, you know, put in Fruity Loops, man, your 808's got to be banging, your snare's got to have the 30-second roll to the blah, 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 and use your massive bass wobble and you'll be just like Skrillex.
Right.
You know,
such a problem.
you have to think out more beyond that because Skrillex has already done that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They've already got, you know, 808, you know, where you Soulja Boy or whatever, you know, he's already done that 10 years ago. Right. So let's think, what is the next as a producer, as an engineer? Like
You gotta continue to reach and be hungry and want to change it. That's what I find, and I think it's important for our audience to realize whether they're pros or coming up or whatever the case may be. The one thing we share is the opportunity to push the envelope. Like, why work really hard to be in the middle of the pack?
It's much easier to be different than better.
Yeah.
I mean, I made my career out here not by trying to be better than Mick Wazowski and John Gass and those guys. I couldn't touch them, can't touch them to this day. They're still better than me. But I became successful by just being the best me I could be, and luckily that difference, a few million people bought the records.
But you wouldn't have gotten there if you didn't want to be the best you. and you gotta want to be that.
And I'm not there yet, but I'm working pretty hard on it.
Hurry up, man. We got stuff to do. G.I., give us one more.
Oh, don't be asking for damn discounts because I ain't the best now.
They won't, because they got to talk to me. It's not going to happen.
This one is from Jacob Hitak. In what ways is working on Jimmy Kimmel and SNL different from putting together music for other artists? I'm curious if the process and work process is the same or demanding in a different way.
Well, it's just like for like TV and broadcast, you just might do things differently because you have a shorter amount of time.
Yep.
You're not mixing for a laptop.
Yep.
So just throw that out of the equation.
Right away.
You don't even need to think about that on your proportion of how you do kicks and snares. You maybe add a couple more elements that's going to hype the performance a bit more. Add a little bit more like salt and pepper to the equation. Edit it down. Only do one verse, 2 hooks in the bridge instead of nobody wants to see your second verse. And that time that you are being broadcast to the world, whether it be SNL, whether it be Kimmel, Fallon, blah blah blah. It's got to be. You got to put 100% of your artistic quality in it, and it's got to be the best thing that you could convey to anyone that's watching. That you could potentially be a fan of yours and purchase your record. Make you a star.
I'm gonna add a B part to that question. If I just dropped in from Mars and I said I want to mix a kick drum for laptops, give me one little nugget of wisdom as to where to start to mix a kick drum for laptops.
I'm telling you, the transient designer. I live by this.
But what I'm hearing is like I find myself sometimes taking some 300 out, some 200 out, and I find that you're adding that sometimes. Yeah. Is that a big distinction now?
Well, it's
over 10
parallel
years ago?
compression helps though too on that.
Absolutely.
And I use different things, but I can't even think of it. Solanus, the Solanus? Is that the manufacturer's name? Some German thing. I don't know.
You're making that shit up.
No, but just parallel compression and just smack the hell out of it. Come on, Dave.
I do that.
I learned it all from you. You know what I mean? You walk in your room, everything's like this. Gain reduction.
How are you going to handle this challenge? The challenge that now that we know you're in LA, and we're going to be calling on you to do more and more.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Is that cool?
Anytime. Can we just move it closer to Hollywood because it's far to drive down.
No, we'll do that. We'll do that.
I'll pick you up.
Exactly.
It's far from me too. I could use some more company. G.I. and I have already discussed all we know to talk about on these trips every week.
Thank you so much for coming.
Greatly
We're
appreciate
going to
it.
be bugging you. We are fans of your success and the way you approach it. We're excited to have you here. It has been really cool.
What was the name of that 9 Inch Nails song again?
Oh, it's a whole album, the Downward Spiral
Downward
album.
Spiral.
Yeah. Not just one song.
I want to make sure everybody hears that again. Who's the engineer on that?
Oh man, now
Jason
Dave.
Joshua knows. He always tells me that's one of his favorite records. We'll figure that
That
out.
was in the 90s.
Yeah.
There you go. It's on the
I just
internet.
dated
You can find it.
myself.
That's right.
I was young when I was listening to that.
like 9. Yeah.
That hat dated you way before that sentence.
Pork pie works. Say goodbye, David. We got to roll.
Hey, man, I hadn't had this much fun since the pigs ate my little brother. Big thank you to Andy Kilhoffer. Grab that 9 Inch Nails record. I'm going to go home and listen to it again. I've forgotten about it. And once again, so much information today. I can't thank Anthony enough. I think I called him Andrew a second ago. I can't thank him enough. I'm going to go back and watch this episode myself. So thanks again, my friend, and you guys will see you next week.